Welcome back to the 903 podcast. This week, I sat down with retired Detective Alan Patton, our dear friend from episodes past. I talked with him about the murder of Herminia Gomez in March of 1998. He walked me through the victimology and the accumulation of evidence that eventually led to the arrest and conviction of Bobby Turner. Here's what's happening in the 903. Welcome back to the 903 podcast. I'm Andrew Dannington, your host. Tonight we're here in Tyler, Texas at the Young Professional Building. I'm gonna get that right this time. And I'm so glad to be here and creating this content with entrepreneurs and nonprofits and maybe some retired detectives as well every now and again. But really want to thank our sponsors. Appreciate you guys helping us create this content, the equipment, travel, and resources that you help us provide. Thank you so much for allowing us to do this. Without further ado, we've got our good friend, former Sergeant Detective of Grand Prairie Major Crime Unit, Alan Patton. Alan, thanks so much for coming back on the podcast. Okay. You have been on our podcast 2 previous times. Before we get to your credentialing, we're going to talk about a new homicide tonight. But we've already talked about 2 prior homicides in prior episodes. We had Angela Crockett, which I think we would agree is probably the one crime scene and homicide that gets talked about the most.
Yes.
And then we also talked about Robert Fat Green, which was a homicide that had a lot of nuances and interesting information in it. If you haven't listened to those 2 podcasts, please go back and do that. But before we get started on this new homicide that we're going to kind of, dissect and look at, talk to us a little bit again about how did you get to where you're at, and what was your career? What does it look like?
Okay, my dad was a Dallas police officer.
Yeah.
And we moved to Grand Prairie in the summer of 1964. South of I-20, before I-20 was built. We were in the country, and I went to Grand Prairie schools from 5th grade to graduation. My dad was in the Navy and had gone to the Dallas Police Department. When I graduated from high school, I went in the Marine Corps, went to Vietnam, learned a lot of things in the military that made me disciplined and, intimidated and get to the bottom of things. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I came back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and in the summer of 1980, I decided to apply for the Grand Prairie Police Department. I got hired, and I spent 32 years and 22 days at the Grand Prairie Police Department. For my first 4 years or so, I was a street cop, and I was almost killed on line of duty in 1982, and I recovered from that, and in November of 1984, I was hired as a juvenile detective, and I conducted crimes committed by juveniles and against juveniles for a while, and then in the summer of 1985, the Criminal Investigations Unit saw how disciplined I was and how detailed I was and what I was making my decisions to make arrests and file cases, how objective and impartial I was, that I early on learned to work just as hard to prove innocence as I did guilt. And so the police department criminal investigation supervision, okay, we want you to be a property crimes detective. And I did street crimes, a crack cocaine task force for about 6 or 7 months, and that's where Robert Fat Green came into the picture. And then on May of 1990, there was an opening in major crimes for a detective, and I was asked to take that position. I did major crimes as a police officer as a detective until February of 1998, when I got promoted to sergeant on the heels of the cadet murder conviction. And then
which was the Angela Crockett.
The Adrian Jones
murder. Oh, that's right, yeah.
Adrian Jones. But In my time in major crimes as a detective, I was assigned to 25 homicides as the lead detective. And not bragging, just I solved every one of those. 2 of them I solved after I got promoted to sergeant, because they promoted me to sergeant and said, you're now the sergeant over the major crimes unit. And there was a lawsuit that came out of the cadet murder thing where the detectives arrested the wrong guy, and the city had to pay a $100,000 lawsuit to settle for how they threw a thunder flash into the house trying to arrest a guy that was a potential suspect but wasn't the suspect. And so the chief called me, and when I got promoted, he said, I'm going to promote you to sergeant. I want you to be the major crime sergeant. Can you keep us from getting sued? I said, yes, sir. He said, how? I said, by being thorough and objective and impartial. And so I got to make some changes administratively in who was in the unit. And there were a couple of detectives in the unit that continued to work in the unit, and I hired a couple of more new detectives. And it was, in my opinion, it was the best major crimes unit in the history of the police department.
Okay.
And so just the detectives that worked under me did an outstanding job investigating some horrible, horrible crimes.
Right.
And they made good decisions, and they came to me, and we worked together as supervisor and investigator. And so I just had a bunch of 4 detectives in a unit that I respected their abilities, and they respected my supervision.
Right.
So we worked together, and I call it teamwork thing. There were so many different kinds of crimes that we investigated, include homicides. But just that's how I got to where I got.
Yeah. The homicide that we're going to talk about tonight was the first that was assigned to you after you were promoted.
Yes, sir.
And so walk us through kind of, you like to start with victimology, right?
Well, and I also want to bring in, do we work for God?
Yes.
Okay. In February of 1991, there was a man named Vernon Gebreth that was the Bronx Homicide Task Force Commander for the New York Police Department.
Right.
And he teaches practical homicide investigation. And I went to his teaching in February of 1990. And his motto is, and remember, we work for God.
Yeah.
That we have a responsibility on behalf of the surviving members of the family of the person who was killed to do everything in our power to bring to justice the person who took the life of their loved one.
Right.
So we work for God is on my business card even now.
Right. Yeah.
And so then having a team that had the same attitude that I had made for a great team of people to do these horrible kinds of crime investigations. I mean, we cleared some people who were alleged to have done homicides.
Right.
And cleared them of their involvement in a murder, but we also found some people that it took us a lot of work to get it done, but we found evidence to prove someone had taken the life of another person.
Right.
So it was just a tenacity thing.
Sure.
And but giving the Lord credit.
Yeah, and everybody was on the same page.
Well, there were times where people would come in my office, like Adrian, the Angela Crockett, a detective, an officer came in and said, "Man, you sure do follow hunches. You're a smart detective." I said, "No, I work for God." So just, having that extra little bit of incentive, if you want to call it extra little bit.
Sure.
Just listening to the man upstairs and then doing what you needed to do as a criminal investigator.
Doing what's right.
Exactly. For the right reason.
Yeah.
So
this is your first assigned case.
Yes.
As promoted. You've got 2 other ones that you're still working on that get closed after you're promoted.
Yes, sir.
But this is the first one that you're assigned. And again, you like to do the victimology first? Or, yes, okay. So we have a victim, and it's, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce this. Is it Herminia?
Herminia
Gomez.
Yes. 48 years old.
48. And walk us through kind of the husband comes onto the scene first, or how does that work? Walk us through that.
We'll try to give geographical location because Grand Prairie is a much larger city than it used to be. But the northeast side of Grand Prairie back in the 90s was primarily Hispanic families, and it was close to the Dallas city limits. The Gomez family lived on Northeast 29th Street, was extreme northeast Grand Prairie. And she was married, lived with her husband Juan, and he worked in Dallas.
Okay.
On Wednesday, March 11th, 1998, Mr. Gomez came home from work at 6:10 p.m. When he got home, he saw his sister's car, which his wife, Herminia, had borrowed that day to go grocery shopping.
Right.
The car was parked in their driveway. The car doors were unlocked. The interior light was on. When Mr. Gomez walked into his house, he found Herminia's body lying on the floor by the dining room table. And due to blood all around her head on the floor, he immediately thought she was dead, and he called 911. And Grand Prairie 911 sent ambulance, the fire department, and police officers responded, and Officer Hogg was the officer that was responding to the initial call.
Right.
And once he got there and he observed her body on the floor, she was lying on her back next to the dining room table, facing in a northeasterly direction.
Mm-hmm.
He observed a large pool of blood and brain matter around her head and on the carpet. He saw she was wearing a shirt and saw a pair of pants and panties on the floor next to her right leg. He saw a jacket covering her waist and the lower portion of her body.
So lots of blood, and clothes are they're not the way they need to be.
No. And there's also a pillow on the floor. And Officer Hogg saw that the pillow had a red spot on the outside of it that looked like blood.
Okay.
On the dining room table, he saw groceries. He noticed that inside the car, the groceries were both in the back seat and the trunk, and it appeared to him that she had been unloading the groceries that she had bought when she was attacked inside of her home.
Did it appear that the pillow was used?
Well, at that moment, he didn't make that decision.
Okay.
That came as when we responded.
Okay.
But basically, crime scene, criminal investigations, me and several detectives, Detective Oseguera, Detective Williams, and Detective Gudgel, we all responded, as well as the Dallas County Medical Examiner, to the scene. Officers took Mr. Gomez to the police department so that a crime scene investigator could take a swab of his hand for a gunshot residue test to check to see if there was gunshot residue on his hands.
Right.
In those kinds of cases where there was no other witness to a thing, if somebody found a body,
yeah,
it was part of our normal routine to take a swab of their hands,
sure,
to ensure there was no gunshot residue on their hand, to ensure that they weren't the person who fired that weapon. It wasn't a we think you're guilty thing. It was just
rules
trying
about
to get ready for a defense strategy down the road.
Right.
But and that test came back negative, and so we knew that he didn't have anything to do with shooting her. The crime scene discovered that the shirt top that Mrs. Gomez had been wearing had been pushed up to her bra line.
Okay.
And found her pants and undergarments had been removed. She was nude from the waist down, and there was an investigative need to determine if Mrs. Gomez had been sexually assaulted before she was shot in the head. Whoever killed her had placed this pillow over her head and had fired through the pillow into her head, and the bullet went through her head and into the floor.
Using it as a suppression device.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. We were under the impression that that was used to keep the sound of the discharge of the weapon from being heard by neighbors.
Or the fact that she wouldn't be, like the killer wouldn't see her in one way or another. There's, you wouldn't have that eye-to-eye contact when you shot.
Right.
Okay.
And the scene, initially when you saw the scene, due to the clothing, there was a concern, had there been a sexual assault
Right.
of her
Yeah.
during all this as well. So while processing the crime scene pulled back the rug underneath her head and did locate this projectile in the carpet.
And what we know is from your prior stories, like the Angela Crockett one, the one that sticks out the most is that she was sexually assaulted after.
Yes.
Which is wild.
Yes.
To think about. So you're trying to process whether or not it was a
Yes.
situation where it happened and then she was killed, or it would happen after.
Well, see, in criminally speaking,
Yeah.
okay, capital murder, you have to commit murder, and in the course of committing murder, you have to do other things.
Yeah.
Including committing sexual assault or during the robbery.
Okay.
Okay. So, crime scene, at the crime scene, while they're processing the crime scene, we're there, me and the detectives, and there's no shell casing at the scene.
Okay.
And generally speaking, that indicates us that she may have been shot with a revolver, but it's also been an experience that someone who does that kind of crime picks up the shell casing and takes it with them to confuse the investigators.
Right.
The Dallas County Medical Examiner did perform a sexual assault exam on her during the autopsy, and they reported there was no seminal fluid detected in that exam, and she was not sexually assaulted before she was killed. Mr. Gomez tells us that her leather purse and wallet were missing.
Okay.
This is where the case takes a different turn, because now you got robbery as a motive. So you have a capital murder now, not just a murder.
But then you also have kind of a staged sexual assault, right?
Yes, exactly.
And then the only other evidence you've got, you don't have any hair, any follicles. No. You have a fragment of a bullet.
Yes.
You don't have a casing.
No, they had a good bullet, but it was just kind of damaged.
Okay, got it. Okay, and now we have a missing purse and wallet.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And in her wallet was her driver's license, a Sears credit card, and her Visa credit card.
Okay.
I've said this many times. If you listen to a crime scene, the crime scene will talk to you.
Okay.
Based upon the plastic bags of groceries discovered both inside the house and inside of her car, our initial theory as investigators was that an unidentified person had confronted her while she was unloading her groceries, and it appeared possible that the suspect may have tried to sexually assault her before putting a pillow over her head and shooting her in the head, killing her instantly, then stealing her wallet and credit cards. So, not knowing what the motive was initially, we're just, what is the crime scene telling us? It's telling us that it appeared she was possibly gonna be sexually assaulted, or was waiting for the medical examiner to make their sexual assault exam, and then the stealing of her wallet and credit cards.
Right.
Then, this is something that we did quite often, almost every kind of case we had, a canvass of the neighborhood, to go around and talk to the neighbors. Did you hear anything? Did you see anything, or anybody that was suspicious?
Mm-hmm.
During this canvass, Detective Gudgel, who's now a police chief in another town in Texas,
That's cool.
spoke to a neighbor who lived across the street from the Gomez family. I'll call this lady Mrs. S. I want to protect her identity.
Sure, of course.
But she told Detective Gudgel that between 3:30 p.m. and 4 p.m. on March 11th, that a man who she described as a slender, 6 tall inch black man who was wearing a gray suit and driving a white compact car came to her door, knocked on her door, and asked her if he could enter her home to talk about his business. which she claimed was a housing development.
Mm.
This male subject told Mrs. S. his presentation would take about 45 minutes. Mrs. S. told the detective while this man was persistent in trying to get her to allow him inside of her home, she locked the screen door and that man left. Detective Oseguera learned that Ms. Gomez had gone to her sister-in-law's house in Grand Prairie on March 11th asking to borrow the car.
Sure.
We've already touched on that.
Yeah.
At about 4 p.m., Herminia left her sister-in-law's house and wasn't seen alive again.
Mm-hmm.
On March 14th,
Okay.
Detective Oseguera learns that someone had used Herminia's stolen credit cards.
What was that process like in the late 90s? Were you contacting credit card companies, or how did that investigative thing happen back then?
Generally speaking, back in that time, someone had to use a card that had been reported as stolen to the person, the company, or whatever that gave that card.
Yes.
You know, whatever it was, they had to have some kind of information, and they would, oh, no, that card's been stolen.
Right.
And of course, it wasn't like it is these days where, you know, every time I use my credit card, I get a text message that your credit card was used.
Yes.
It went back that way in the 90s.
That's why I asked.
Right. So basically, on March the 14th, 3 days later,
Yeah.
Detective Oseguera learns about someone using her credit cards.
Okay.
On Wednesday, March 11th, the day her body was discovered, 50 minutes before her body was discovered,
Before her husband got home.
someone used her Visa card to pay $100 for a lap dance at an exotic dance studio near the Six Flags Mall in Arlington. So before her body was even discovered, somebody had used her credit card to buy a lap dance.
Okay.
Detective Gudgel met with the dancer, who remembered she had danced for a black man who used the name Bobby.
Okay.
Clearly, we suspected after this meeting that Bobby, whoever Bobby was, whether he used his name or a fake name,
Sure.
could be the person who killed Herminia Gomez. Also on March the 11th, at 5:38 p.m., 18 minutes after using the credit card at the dance studio, someone used Herminia Sears' credit card at the Sears at Six Flags Mall to purchase a set of steak knives valued at $5.39. We believed that this person that used this $5.39 purchase was to see if he could use the card and get away with it.
if it was good, yeah.
Yes. And on March the 12th, the next day, someone used her Visa card to make purchases of $54.24 and $62.64 at unknown locations.
Okay.
Back then, it wasn't as it is today.
No, yeah, it'd be pretty specific today.
Then at 2:30 p.m., someone using the name Bobby had used her Visa card to pay for a $52.20 meal at the Steak and Ale located across the street from Six Flags.
Pretty nice meal back in those days.
Yes.
Be $100, maybe more now.
Yeah. Someone used her Visa card at a mobile station in Arlington for $3.54.
Okay.
Again, seeing how can I use this without somebody getting suspicious.
Sure.
Someone used her Visa card to charge $29.04 at a Winn-Dixie store in Grand Prairie.
Okay.
Then on March the 13th, the charges continue. Someone used her Visa card to make a purchase of $9.20. Someone used her Visa card to pay for a $9.02 purchase at a Whataburger located on Northwest 19th in Grand Prairie. This is close to Interstate 30.
Yeah.
A tall, slender black male wearing a green shirt used her Diamond Shamrock credit card to pay for 2 18-packs of Coors Light beer at a light beer store located on West Tarrant Road in Grand Prairie. This transaction, the purchase of the beer, was recorded on the store surveillance camera, and that evidence was gathered by Detective Oseguera.
But so just so we're clear, like you've got somebody using her card.
Yes.
That's what you've got.
Yes.
You have somebody who's deceased. We know how she passed away. We know we don't have any weapon of any kind.
Right.
We don't have an intent of any kind. We have something that's staged. And then we've got somebody using what we know is a stolen card that could have been sold, could have been passed along,
Exactly.
could have been traded for drugs.
Exactly. The focus at that time, how do we figure out who's using this card?
Right.
Because there have been other cases, robberies, shootings, stabbings over the years, where somebody's card was stolen, but then they would give that card to somebody else.
Sure.
So just because this guy was using the card, we needed to determine who
Right.
this guy was. Because yes, would he be a strong person of interest?
Yeah, of course.
So on March the 16th, between 2 and 2:30, a person described by Sears employees as a slim black male, 6'3", 6'3" tall, used her Sears credit card at the Six Flags Mall to buy a pair of size 12 shoes and a pair of socks. When a female employee notified security that the card was reported stolen, security detained that man, seizing the shoes and socks, but then allowed him to leave the store. Instead of calling the Arlington police and said, we got a guy here using a stolen credit card.
Right.
They just simply got their property back and let him leave. On that same day, the same suspect, the same black male, used her credit card, her Sears credit card at the Six Flags Mall to buy a pair of overalls. And these purchases aren't making a whole lot of sense.
Right.
Once again, security caught up to him, pulled the package containing those overalls away from him, and he left the store. So believe me, and when this is all happening, we're confused why security didn't detain him.
Right.
And call the Arlington police. This guy's using a stolen credit card. Detective Oseguera obtained the store's surveillance video footage from Sears, which recorded this man using her credit card. This suspect was wearing a shirt and a tie, which is part of the description Mrs. S. gave us.
That's right.
Summary of the credit card charges. I got this here. Between March 11th and March 16th of 1998, the various credit cards stolen from Herminia Gomez when she was murdered were used 11 times for purchases totaling $334.57. Twice, the suspect tried unsuccessfully to make purchases at the Six Flags Mall. Then there's the We Work for God break in the case. On Wednesday, March 18th, remember that $52.20 were charged at the Steak and Ale in Arlington with Herminia's Visa card. With a combination of We Work for God and the tenacity and diligence of the Major Crimes Unit of the Grand Prairie Police Department, we received the break we needed in helping identify the suspect in this murder. Detective Williams, who was my partner for most of my time as a detective in major crimes, he still worked for me after I got promoted,
Yeah.
Detective Williams drove to the Steak and Ale, where he met with the hostess, waitress, and manager of that Steak and Ale, seeking information related to the dinner purchase paid for with Herminia's credit card. The hostess told Detective Williams that at 2:30 p.m. on March 12th, that a black man wearing a white shirt, tie, and slacks, the consistency in what's being worn,
Right.
entered the restaurant asking to make a reservation for 6 p.m. That evening, under the name Bobby, was the reservation he wanted to make. And he asked her if he could prepay for the meal.
Right.
The hostess contacted the manager. While waiting for the manager, the hostess thought she recognized Bobby as someone she attended high school with at Arlington Sam Houston High School. Again, we work for God moment. What are the chances of this?
Yeah, her remembering who he is.
I went to school with this guy.
Right.
If it had been some total stranger, she would not have known who he was.
Sure.
While she didn't know his name and was waiting for the manager to run the credit card, she asked Bobby if he attended Sam Houston High School, and he said yes. The manager recalled when that suspect prepaid for his dinner that she did notice the card was in the name of Juan Gomez. Even though the reservation is in the name of Bobby, she watched as he signed the receipt, and he signed the receipt Juan Gomez. On March 17th, the manager received a phone call from Steak and Ale management advising her that the card used to pay for that meal had been stolen from a murder victim. The hostess told Detective Williams she recognized Bobby again from high school. And Detective Williams obtained the yearbook from that school and met with the hostess. She looked through the yearbook and she identified 23-year-old Bobby Turner Jr. as the person who used Mrs. Gomez's credit card to pay for the dinner on March the 12th. So now we have an identity
Right.
of the suspect.
Bobby.
Yes. And it wasn't something she thought, well, maybe it might be him. No, that's the guy right there. So she knew him. Detective Oseguera also showed the Steak and Ale hostess a video surveillance where the man used the Diamond Shamrock card to buy beer, and she identified him as Bobby Turner. So we're getting different identifications from different things.
Right. We're placing Bobby Eubanks, you said?
Turner Jr., yes.
Bobby Turner at multiple places
Yes,
now.
using that card.
Yeah, so it's not a different person.
So now we have a very strong potential suspect in this murder. Clothing
Right.
description matches what Mrs. S
Yes.
gave us. So it was, to us, we're believing that whoever this was worked for a business.
Right.
And was probably because in the neighborhood.
You can put him in the area
Yes.
of the time.
Yes.
And then you can put him in possession of some of her things.
Yes.
And using those things. I would assume that's there's some strong evidence there, but we're not all the way there, right?
Right. We've got to get into the place where we're doing identifications, getting
Yes.
identifications made.
Right.
So, Detectives Gudgel, Oseguera, and Williams, my buddies, wonderful detectives, they discovered that Bobby Turner Jr. had been arrested by the Grand Prairie Police 7 months earlier. They prepared photo lineups that concluded Bobby Turner Jr.'s photo, and they were able to get Bobby Turner Jr. positively identified for numerous credit card offenses. So at this point, what we have is the identity of the person using the cards.
Yeah. Right.
Now, it doesn't mean, because there were other cases where we had murders where things were taken and
Sure.
other people gave the credit cards, etc. And
Right. You've just got him using them.
yes, exactly. So what we have
But you also have him in the area
Yes.
at that time.
Yes.
You believe.
Yeah, we didn't show Mrs. S lineup.
Right.
Okay. But basically, we have a suspect who's using her cards all over the place.
Correct.
Okay. So that's a start because you have credit card abuse offenses.
Right.
So then I call this next little area here, they're called the arrest and the search warrant.
Okay.
On March the 18th, I began researching Bobby Turner Jr. And I discovered that he was living with his wife, Tiffany, in an apartment at the Hillcrest Apartments on West Tarrant Road in Grand Prairie, which is all near all of the things.
Sure.
Next to this Whataburger, next to the convenience store. And this complex was located directly across the street from the Diamond Shamrock and just 2 blocks away from the Whataburger,
right,
where Turner had used her credit cards. The Hillcrest Apartments were just a few miles from Six Flags and the Six Flags Mall. I passed this information on to Detective Cherry, who also worked for me in the major crimes. Detective Cherry learned that Turner was employed by as an outside salesman for ITT Technical Institute in Arlington,
right,
3 miles from his apartment complex. Via the management of that company, Detective Cherry learned that Turner's area of responsibility was the area of Northeast Grand Prairie. So we're establishing that the company
right,
he works for, he's responsible for
that area.
that area, trying to get the business to be used.
Yeah.
So we're getting a stronger feeling about
right,
the potential that he's in the person.
the reason why he's there.
Yes, exactly. Detective Oseguera spoke to the manager of Diamond Shamrock Stop and Go, and he filed 2 police reports with Grand Prairie for credit card abuse against Turner, because you have to have a victim to make a complaint.
Right.
Detective Cherry then prepared 2 warrants for Turner's arrest for credit card abuse, and we obtained a search warrant to search Turner's apartment. Late that afternoon, we organized a team to arrest Bobby Turner Jr. for the credit card abuse warrants. My job was to watch the front of the apartment complex property to ensure that Turner did not leave in his white Ford Escort, while the other major crimes unit detectives and a number of uniformed patrol officers set up a perimeter around that apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Before we went to go do this arrest warrant and search warrant, my lieutenant called me into his office, and because of the arrest involving the cadet murder where the wrong person was arrested, he said, "Don't you charge this guy with murder, just charge him with the credit card abuse."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Lieutenant, I think I know how to do my job."
Yeah.
Okay? We have warrants for credit card abuse. At about dusk, I was watching the mailboxes at the front of Turner's building when I saw him drive towards the exit on Tarrant Road in his white Ford Escort. Humorously enough, he drove directly across the street to the Diamond Shamrock as both plainclothes detectives and uniformed police officers approached him as he got out of his car in the front of the store. When he saw all these police officers and detectives, he sprinted inside that Diamond Shamrock and locked himself in the store's cooler.
Okay.
Guess, this is kind of humorous,
Yeah.
guess he was getting prepared to be on ice.
Yeah.
That's just my humorous way of
Right.
why he went in there. Officers Anguiano and Wester were able to take custody of Turner, taking him to the Grand Prairie Jail. Inside of his car, officers found a quantity of marijuana.
Yeah.
So now we got possession of marijuana,
Credit card abuse.
credit card abuse.
Yeah.
That's where we are at this time.
And evading, I guess.
Well, yeah, baiting, you
Yeah.
know, but he took off running, but they didn't tell him you were under arrest. He just took off running when they saw
Okay,
him.
gotcha.
Detectives Oseguera, Gudgel, and I then made entry into Turner's apartment to execute the search warrant. Of course, there's lots of things we're looking for.
Sure.
During that search, we found the set of steak knives which Turner had purchased from Sears at the Six Flags Mall on March 11th. So not only do we have credit card abuse, we now have custody of what he bought, making our case a little stronger.
Sure.
At that time, I made the decision as the unit supervisor to instruct the detectives to add the investigative charge of capital murder to the list of charges Turner was being arrested for, despite what my lieutenant had told me.
So what was it? It's still just stuff to this point, right?
But it was the timing of it. These were used before her body was even discovered.
Yeah. Okay.
So there was a reasonable belief as a criminal investigator.
You felt like there wasn't any time between the time that he stole them that he could transfer possession.
Right.
Plus, he was in a kind of a little bit more remote area of Grand Prairie.
Yes.
And these charges aren't happening around her place. They're happening around his place.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
And probable cause existed
Yeah, got it.
to
Okay.
cover that charge. Well, what are we missing?
Murder weapon.
Yes.
Weapon.
Exactly, the murder weapon.
Yeah.
Turner's wife, Tiffany, was in the car with Bobby when he was arrested.
Okay.
I spoke to her in the parking lot of the Diamond Shamrock, explained to her why we had arrested Bobby,
Yeah.
hoping she had information that could help us.
Right.
This is his wife.
Yeah.
Now, will she be cooperative?
Correct.
But I'm a people person kind of a guy. So, I'm an eye contact. Let's talk about this. Come on.
Sure.
Okay. She told me that on March the 6th, Bobby had placed 2 handguns on layaway at Arlington Arms, and that one of those handguns was a 9mm and the other was a .380. Tiffany told me that on either March 10th or 11th, Bobby had picked up those 2 firearms from Arlington Arms. Tiffany told me on March 11th, Bobby had called her telling her he had gone to Six Flags Mall and had bought steak knives. She told me that on March the 12th, Bobby told her he was going to make a reservation for them for dinner, and that at about 5:30 p.m. they went to the Steak and Ale by Six Flags for dinner. Then at about 11 p.m. on March 13th, she was at her sister's house in Fort Worth, and Bobby picked up his car, and there was Coors Light beer in the car. The beer bought with the credit
It just
card.
corroborates what he's purchased.
Yes, the evidence
with
the evidence is growing in terms of
Yes.
him using these credit cards with this woman who'd been murdered brutally.
Sure. Absolutely.
Tiffany gave me a receipt where Bobby had put the 9mm handgun on layaway on March the 6th. Tiffany then took me to 903 Woodbrook in Arlington, where she gave me a box which contained a chrome Lorson brand 9mm semi-automatic handgun, loaded with 8 rounds of ammunition and a box of 35 live rounds. Tiffany then contacted her father in Arlington and told him where the .380 was. So his wife, Tiffany, is being extraordinarily helpful. Yes.
Because he's bought 2 guns, or he put them in layaway and then he pulls them out.
Yes.
And then, so she has the 9mm at their home.
Yes.
And his father-in-law, has the .380, which is also a Lorson. So they're both the same brand. Okay.
At 1 a.m. on March the 19th, Tiffany's father met me At 1 a.m.
That's a pretty motivated man to say, hey, you can have it.
I'm a motivated sergeant. I'm going to do what I need to do my job.
Right.
At 1 a.m. on March the 19th, Tiffany's father met with me at the Hillcrest Apartments and surrendered to me the .380 caliber semi-automatic handgun. I booked those weapons in as evidence to the police property room.
Yep.
Both of those weapons were subsequently taken to the Southwest Institute of Forensic Sciences in Dallas, Texas, and Grand Prairie Police crime scene investigator for ballistics compared to the projectile recovered at the crime scene. However, microscopic examination of the projectile recovered at the crime scene, they determined the projectile recovered was too mangled for a positive match to either pistol. So we couldn't say it was one or the other of these weapons because the weapon was, the bullet was so mangled.
The fragment.
Then there's the confession. On Thursday morning, March the 19th, 8 days after he murdered Herminia Gomez in cold blood, and this was a cold-blooded murder.
Yeah.
He was arraigned by a magistrate and was interviewed by Detectives Williams and Oseguera. Bobby Turner initially verbally confessed to having shot and killed Herminia Gomez. He subsequently gave a written confession as well.
Wow.
In his statements, Bobby Turner made the following confessions. Turner stated to those detectives, I shot and killed her because I was just trying to provide for my child.
His child.
This made me want to throw up. I killed her because I was just trying to provide for my child.
Steak and ale.
Do you remember the kind of purchases he made with that credit card?
Steak knives.
Lap dance.
Lap dance.
Beer. How's that going to provide for his
Shoes,
child?
socks,
Yes.
overalls.
Exactly. I mean, but this is his version
of course.
His motive.
Yeah.
I mean, sickening. Things that help a child, like steak knives, an exotic dance, taking his wife to a steak dinner, eating at Whataburger, buying gas, buying beer, trying to buy shoes, size 12, and socks.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me, but I didn't see that any of those purchases were made trying to provide for his child. When the detectives told him I had recovered both of the pistols he had purchased, he admitted to them that he shot Herminia with the 9mm, admitting that he picked up the shell casing after he shot her.
Yeah.
He said he had not forced his way into the home, claiming she invited him in. He said at gunpoint he forced her to lie down and made her take off her clothes. Staged sexual assault.
Okay.
Saying he did not sexually assault her.
Right.
He was trying to confuse whoever would respond to this murder crime scene by making it look like she had been sexually assaulted. Not smart enough to think there's a test that we can do to prove whether she had or had not been sexually assaulted. He said he found her purse and decided to shoot her because he did not want to leave a witness alive. When he asked what he did with the credit cards, he claimed to have thrown them away.
When they stopped working.
In his written statement, he included a sentence that he was sorry for what happened and that he felt a great deal of remorse.
When he got caught.
Very seldom in my career and the 104 homicides I had business with did a person who committed a crime actually feel sorry about what they had done.
Yeah.
Sorry they got caught, yes. But very seldom, if ever, this one time, did a person who took the life violently of this woman say anything about being remorseful about having taken her life. I'm not saying that consoled us at all, but that's what he said.
Yeah.
The end result, Bobby Turner Jr. pled guilty to capital murder and was sentenced to capital life, which was 35 years. He will not be eligible for parole until March 18th of 2033.
And now, a word from our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Hoot and Holler Beverage. When I think of Hoot and Holler, their selection and customer service first comes to mind. So skip the big box franchises and make the trip to Hoot and Holler in Gun Barrel City. Between barrel picks, mixers, seltzers, whatever you need for the weekend, they'll help you find it. Stop by today. Scott and team are ready. This episode is sponsored by the Humidor. If you are looking for cigars and want to enjoy a few hours in a great environment with a great staff, the Humidor should be your next stop. With their vast selection and new bar, you'll have a great time every time. This episode is sponsored by Vault Arms, the premier destination for all things firearm related. So if you're in the market for handguns, rifles, or supplies, stop by Vault Arms at 4740 South Broadway or their indoor range at 417 West Elm in Tyler. Now back to the 903 podcast.
You know, as a detective sergeant, as a detective in the Major Crimes Unit, I talked about the 1 a.m. meeting with her father, okay? Yeah. There were many a time I was called out on a crime that occurred 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and there were days where I would go days without sleep.
Yeah.
While the case was hot.
Sure.
Finding evidence to find out who did this. And the detectives that I worked with in major crimes that continued to work for me when I got promoted to sergeant, and Detective Gudgel, who came to work for me as well. I had the best major crimes unit in the state of Texas, in my opinion. They were passionate and committed to finding the person, because in the We Work for God document that I got from Vernon Gebreth, it says, remember, you have a responsibility on behalf of the surviving members of the family to do everything in your power to bring to justice the person who took their life of their loved one. And that tenacity wasn't something we just talked about doing.
Yeah.
It was a tenacity we did.
Sure.
And there were other murders that I supervised, including an MS-13 murder, where we had to go to Washington, D.C., had to go to Ohio, Colorado. I mean, just the tenacity of what a detective who does this kind of work should have came natural for me in the unit that I supervised.
Can I ask you a question that, and that we didn't really, this isn't a rehearsed question. There's a lot of times, possibly over your career, we haven't talked about this, that where you've had to notify next of kin.
Yes.
Yeah. And then there's a number of times where you've had to notify next of kin after you've solved a murder.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between those two? Because notifying next of kin is a tragic, like, that's changing their life and probably changing your life too. But notifying next of kin after you've done your job and after you've put a lot of time, you know, and your team has accomplished what they've needed to accomplish. And you just said it yourself, like there's not a solace there because you still have someone that they've lost, right? But you've done your job and you at least bring that closure Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the two and how those things feel?
Yeah, and I'm going to go personal with this because you just brought up something that is a memory that I want to share, okay?
Okay.
In 2004, I'm still the major crime sergeant. Grand Prairie police officer Greg Hunter, my best friend on the police department, was shot and killed in a Walmart parking lot in Grand Prairie, Texas, by a man who was in a van with all kinds of guns, and security had called the police, and he shows up, and the guy inside of this van shoots and kills my best friend. I respond, detectives respond, an officer responds to the shooting and gets to the shootout with the suspect and kills him. Okay, so the suspect is dead. Okay? Among my responsibilities as the major crime sergeant at the scene of my best friend's death.
Right.
Wasn't the case that we've got to figure out who did it. We knew who did it. Justice was swift. He got killed by police officers. The man who did the shooting was on his way to Florida to kill his wife and blow up their family with dynamite and explosives. We did not know who he was, but we got inside the car, and in the glove compartment, I found an envelope with an address and the name of his parents, who lived 1 mile from the Walmart. It was my job to go make death notification to his parents that he had been killed by police. Mm-hmm. The majority of the time that I made those death notifications, I was compassionate. I've got bad news. I'm sorry to tell you this. I'm sorry. Just pray that God gives you comfort. When they answered the door, I made the biggest mistake of my career. Your son just killed my best friend, and we just killed him. And I left. The next morning, after contemplating what I had done, I went back to their residence, knocked on the door, and strongly and kindly, as sweetly as I could, apologized for my emotional reaction. Mm-hmm. So yes, we had a chaplain that would attend us on most of our death notifications afterwards. And so that was part of it, but also going to them with the good news that we found who did it.
Yeah.
And they're going to be charged. And then having the nature take its course in the criminal process and convictions being given. And so, yes, it was, Greg Hunter's murder was very emotional for me.
Sure.
And, I then was asked to lead the procession for his burial, his funeral.
Right.
And that was in 2004. So here I am all these years later, it still consumes me. But, just the tenacity that homicide investigators should use. There's so many. There were some detectives that worked around me and with me over the years when I was in major crimes that they didn't have what it took to dig as deep as they needed to dig, okay? I mean, there were nights where I would go 2 or 3 nights without sleeping while the evidence was, I'm pursuing evidence to find out who did what.
Sure.
And that tenacity was shown by all of the detectives that worked for me in major crimes.
Yeah.
And so, just grateful that God gave me an opportunity to serve the citizens of Grand Prairie.
Sure.
And to serve those people who suffered loss of their loved ones.
Right.
And to bring to justice, to give them some kind of peace of mind that the person who took the life of their loved one was going to spend the rest of their life in jail.
Yeah.
Didn't bring them back to life, but again, it's that, okay, now I know the police have done their job. This person's going to pay the price.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for being vulnerable. Appreciate that. I know you're a very passionate person, but I knew that there was something to it. We hadn't really talked about that, so apologize for springing it on you last minute. But
can I share another story with you?
Absolutely, please.
Because again, the we worked just as hard to prove innocence as we did guilt, being objective and impartial. There was a young man, it was a crack cocaine dealer, that I had gotten to know when I was on the Street Crimes Task Force before I went to Major Crimes. Neat young kid. Well, while I'm the sergeant over major crimes, there was a shooting at a crack cocaine apartment complex in Grand Prairie. There was a shooting where somebody killed a person. There were 3 witnesses that identified this young man as the person who killed this drug guy that wanted to buy drugs. When I was working the crack cocaine neighborhood, I got to know this young man and his mother. She made great barbecue, by the way. She called me. He was in jail. The detectives had arrested him, and they had filed a case against him. He'd been transferred to the Dallas County Jail. His mother called me. Patton, you know my son. He would not do this. Will you go talk to him? The detectives had already talked to the witnesses, taken statements from 3 witnesses who all said he shot and killed this guy.
Yeah.
I said, yes, ma'am, I will. I didn't tell her no. The detectives have already talked to no. Yes, ma'am, I will. Because she trusted
your abilities.
My abilities.
Yeah, sure.
So I drove to the Dallas County Jail, and I went to talk to this young man. And he said, Patton, do you know who Big Red is? Oh, yes, I do. I know who Big Red is. Big Red is who killed that guy. He threatened to kill the witnesses if they didn't tell the police that I did it. I took him to the best polygraph examiner in Dallas that afternoon, and he passed that polygraph with flying colors. Took him back to the Dallas County Jail, went back to the police station, and I told the detectives, this is what I now know. Re-interview your witnesses. They re-interviewed the witnesses, and all 3 witnesses independently recanted their version and said, yes, without anybody implying that Dirty Red do anything, Dirty Red threatened to kill us and our families if we didn't tell the police that he did it.
Yeah.
I then got the pleasure of going to the Dallas County DA and dismissing the indictment on this young man. And I picked him up and gave him a ride back to Grand Prairie and took him to Whataburger and bought him a hamburger.
Right.
But see, how many law enforcement officers have that tenacity?
Sure.
That, again, my personality is such that I'm a never meet a stranger kind of a guy.
Yeah.
You probably know that by now.
Sure, of course.
But, but that she called me and said this to me. I felt, got to look into it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, no, there's 3, no.
Right. Well, that's what made you a great detective after.
Yes.
And that the fact that you were willing to take those extra steps just mattered.
Yes.
And everybody's feedback mattered.
Yes.
And it's why I've had you on the show for 3 times. But I do appreciate you sharing with us. And all of these investigations, there's a lot of time and effort and focus, and the thing that I don't want to happen is that there's people involved here, and there's a story, and a lot of people get excited about listening to murder mystery type stuff, but there was a murder here, and there was a family member, a patriarch that was lost, and that family was changed forever. But your team was tenacious, focused, had opportunistic, and got the job done. So well done.
Well, I have a side story to this.
Okay.
Detective Gudgel, who came to work for me in Major Crimes.
Yeah.
He promoted to sergeant after about 4 or 5 years of working under me. And then in the summer of 2008, the chief of police came to me and decided that I needed to go to internal affairs. And I said, only if you'll let me pick my replacement.
Yeah.
I picked they let Sergeant Gudgel take my place as a major crime sergeant. So but again, even though I'm leaving major crimes, I wanted to ensure that the tenacity and the drive to succeed and to do that on behalf of the surviving members of a family was in the sergeant who was going to take over the major crimes unit.
Sure.
And that objectivity and impartiality worked in internal affairs as well.
Yeah.
That's another subject altogether, but
Maybe for next time.
because maybe the reason why I retired has something to do with internal affairs. I'm teasing you now.
I know.
Okay. Just saying.
Hey, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you spending the time, and I love the fact that you can you relive a part of your career, and I know that it's a distinguished career, and just job well done. Appreciate you.
The Crockett family. Okay,
Yep.
you know that case, correct?
Yep.
Next year, he's eligible for parole.
Yeah.
And I've made a commitment to appear before the parole board and challenge them paroling him. So I mean, again,
Yeah, it
I've
never
been
leaves
retired
you.
for 13 years.
Yeah, it doesn't leave you.
And still that love
Yeah, the dedication.
and the commitment to the members of the families of those victims
Sure.
is still here.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
We've created a really good friendship.
Yeah,
here.
absolutely.
You know,
yeah,
I
it's
just-
been amazing.
I don't get crazy when we're going to do this. It's an opportunity for me to testify to anybody who's going to listen to this
Yeah.
that God has His hand
Yep.
in everything that we do.
Yes, sir.
And I want to give Him the glory for all the things we were able to accomplish, me and our unit together, because we worked for God.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.
All right, so
Tune
you
in.
bet.